It was hard, it's still hard, you know, the memories, you know, of losing that house. I ride back periodically and look at our house that somebody did purchase and haven't done anything since they purchased it. And it's like I said, I lost the community. It was a big loss. And so I know how people who are experiencing foreclosure and eviction feel. We feel like we kind of out there on our own to a degree, especially when you can't get the help that you need from these banks. So if you can go back to your cities and states and advocate on behalf of the president, you know, enforcing the modification laws for people, you know, tell people that they don't have to pay these crooked companies that's trumped up now, those ones who was doing a predatory lending, now they can help. They just changed their name to a new name. And now they're in the business of saying, well, come to us and we'll help you. The very person that got you in the mess that you're in. And so we need legislation and we need people to push for that. And thank you for allowing me to share my experience.
Next we'll hear from Jerry Goldberg from the Moratorium NOW Coalition in Detroit. Jerry's an activist, first and foremost, who also happens to be an attorney who's been fighting on the legal front for people's rights. And he's going to tell how legal is combined with the struggle in the streets to try and stop foreclosures and evictions.
Thanks, Chris. I just want to say a few words, kind of backing up what was been said already, but let me first begin in trying to put the foreclosure crisis that has developed over the last 10, 15 years into a perspective of the overall capitalist economy. Because if we look at the last 20, 30 years, the dominant characteristic of U.S. capitalism has been the leveling and elimination of decent paying union jobs and the overall lowering of wages for the working class as a whole. What the capitalists did, though, to try to stave off the inevitable crisis, because when workers ain't being paid anything no more, you can't buy back the goods you produce, and it leads inevitably to an economic downturn and recession, is they developed certain schemes to try to kind of stave off the crisis. First, it was the credit card, and they started issuing credit cards left and right, easy credit, but eventually those credit cards maxed out. And the next part of the scheme was that they came up with this idea, well, gee, how about people's homes? We'll just turn people's homes, where a home traditionally was something that you paid a mortgage on, a fixed rate for 30 years. At the end of 30 years, you either owned the home, you passed it on to your kids. Say, hey, we're just going to change that into collateral for a new scheme of luring people to put their homes up for easy credit. And that's really what the subprime and predatory lending crisis was about. It was a fundamental change. It was a way for the capitalist class to both stave off an economic crisis at the expense of the people. And it became so profitable for the banks because of the fees that they would charge, and these loans, these extraordinary loans. We see in loans like adjustable rate mortgages for people on a fixed income. An oxymoron, right? You're on a fixed income and they're selling you an adjustable rate mortgage that keeps going up. It makes no sense, and they knew it made no sense. But they made fees. 1 year alone, countrywide, earned $400 million in late fees. One company, one bank, just on late fees. And it became irresistible. And that's why every single bank became entwined in this. Because it was an irresistible way to make profit off the expense of the people. And they all got, everyone, Chase and Citibank, there wasn't one that wasn't part of it. Because that's how this system works. When they see a way to make money, they all jump in and help with the people. The problem for them is that it was built on a house of cards. It was built on them artificially inflating the rates of homes, artificial appraisals that had nothing to do with the value. And eventually, as we know, the bubble burst. And the bubble burst. But of course, what was the effect? The minute the bubble burst, who got bailed out? The banks got bailed out, and the people are left to suffer. But we should be aware this crisis, the bursting of this housing bubble, is really central in many ways to the overall economic crisis that we It was Greenspan did a report that said for about 5 years in the late 2000s, peaking in, I believe it was 2006, over $1 trillion a year was placed into the capitalist economy through home refinancing. And 1 year was $1.5 trillion. Well, that $1.5 trillion is no longer being placed into the capitalist economy, and in fact it's turned into the opposite now. People got to pay those debts off. So it's a tremendous effect in terms of the overall economy, and that's why I think what we're seeing is a protracted economic recession. The jobless recovery, this is about as good as it gets, is 10% unemployment. And it's a direct result of the overall scheme and the overall method of the capitalist class itself. And really that's what the housing crisis reflects. It reflects the classic overproduction and drive of profit at the expense of people that leads inexorably to economic crisis and will lead to resistance. In Michigan, as Abayumi said, when the crisis first hit, it was generally talked about as a subprime mortgage crisis. And there's no city that got hit by subprime loans worse than Detroit. 85% of the loans in Detroit are subprime loans, because Detroit is a majority African-American city. But from day one, we looked at the economy in Detroit and we realized it was a two-pronged crisis. It was a crisis based on racist, predatory lending by every bank, but it also was a crisis based on an economic depression that we've had in Michigan. We've lost about 1 million industrial jobs in the last 10 years. And when you lose your job, or your wages are cut in half, you simply can't pay their mortgage. A lot of times they view Detroit as a Rust Belt, but it's a great thing that Social Forum came to Detroit, because Detroit's in many ways a harbinger of what's going to happen to the rest of the country if we don't fight back. Because now it's documented that the foreclosure crisis is no longer primarily just a subprime crisis, it's an overall crisis. And foreclosures rise in direct relationship to the rise of unemployment. The last statistics I read said that in congressional testimony that 7.9 million homes now are in serious default and foreclosure. And the estimate is of those 7.9 million, 7 million families will be evicted. There's a projection that with the Alt-A and the exotic loans starting to reset, another 6 million homes will be going into foreclosure in the next 2 years. A study indicated that $1.9 trillion in lost wealth has been a direct result of the lowering of property values due to foreclosure. In Michigan, 3.25 million homes, and we're a state of 10 million people, so that's every single home in Michigan, has lost value as a result of the foreclosure crisis. This is an ongoing crisis, it's not about to abate, and it's a product of the overall economic crisis facing working or oppressed people all over this country.